Welcome to our next session of EPM Chronicles and Confession. We're here with Ron Dimon. And Ron, how are you? And just to kick off things, could you explain us what's your definition of EPM?
Oh, thanks, Timmy. Thanks for having me, and congratulations on your new role. Yeah, I love talking about this. Let's jump in. I was fortunate enough to be part of the creation of the category back then called business performance management and corporate performance management, and then morphed to enterprise performance management. So after years of practicing, my definition is that EPM is a collection of processes, systems, data, people, insights, all of that to answer four basic business questions. One is, what's possible in our business, given our products and our customers and our capital and our market? What's possible for the next 3 months, for the next year, for the next 5 years? That's the first question. EPM answers this. So given what's possible, the second question is, well, given what's possible, who's going to do what by when? And that shows up in all of the budgeting and planning and forecasting and modeling that we do based on the targets we got from answering the question, what's possible? So the second question is, who does what where? EPM is one of the few systems where commitments for outcomes are recorded. Your budget, your plan, and your forecast. What are your targets? So then the third question that EPM answers is, okay, given what our targets were and what we planned on doing, where are we right now? What's our actual results, both from a management reporting perspective, statutory reporting perspective, especially around variance reporting? Given where we said our targets were, where are we right now? And then the fourth question is, well, given where we are, why did we get what we got? Let's understand the root cause of why we underperformed in a certain area. Or even better, if we overperformed in a certain area, how did we do that? Can we apply that to other areas? So it's really those four basic questions, and then those insights you get in that last question help feed the process all over again. Well, now given that we understand why we got what we got, now what do we do? Do we acquire a new company? Do we drop a product? Do we change directions? Okay, now who's going to do that? Where are we and what are we doing? So I love that sort of virtuous circle. I call it strategy to execution process. And it's really what a lot of our clients that are on an EPM journey are trying to attain.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. So what have been some of your most pivotal moments in your career, particularly during your time in finance transformation and product management?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate enough to have a very long career in this area. Right out of college, I was a software programmer for Deloitte Haskins and Sells in Toronto in the 80s. So I got in very early to coding finance systems, journal entry systems, trial balance, like that. And then Deloitte turned me into a consultant. And very quickly, I think on the product management side, a pivotal moment was working with both the U.S. Navy and Citibank. Every sailor or many sailors have a charge card, a credit card. And when they go to port or they have to buy supplies or they have to subscribe to a software as a service, they'll use their credit card. I designed and wrote the back end that connected credit card transactions to government accounting systems. Absolutely pivotal. And the lesson I learned from that, if I look back, is it all started with a whiteboard. I designed the flow of data live in front of two audiences, the client on the whiteboard. And that sort of caught their attention that I knew what I was talking about. B, I had a solid vision for how the process was going to work. And then C, I had a way to develop that. So then I got into designing and building and managing that product. Super, super pivotal. On the finance transformation side, it was Hyperion. I joined Hyperion in 1999. I got recruited there and got to work in a group called Strategic Consulting. And that's where I started learning about what CFO really cares about to be a better business partner. It's managing those outcomes and being a better partner to the business and providing new insights. And that was the crux of finance transfer. It wasn't just close the books, tick and tie, do your 3-year plan and then management reporting. It was much, much more than that. And then since then, I've been all about driving outcomes and aligning EPM back to the things that companies care about: profitable revenue growth,
Fantastic. Yeah.
operational efficiency, cash cycle, all those important things.
Sure. Thank you for that. So you've authored Connected Planning, a playbook for agile decision making. What inspired you to write this book, and what key insights can readers expect from it?
Yeah, I was very, very fortunate when I was with Deloitte Haskins and Sells in the 90s in Toronto. I got involved in a book there around microcomputers.
Oh,
Some of your viewers might know what that is.
yeah,
When
I do remember. Yeah, myself.
yeah, so I got involved in the process of writing content for a book, and then when I went to Hyperion, did the same thing for the CEO and then for their chief strategy officer. So eventually, I was working with one publisher as sort of a ghostwriter, and the publisher came to me and said, "Why don't you write a book?" And that was my first book, which was called Enterprise Performance Management Done Right. And that was this notion of those 4 business questions and
Yeah.
driving to outcomes and what should the strategy to execution process be and how do you govern all that. So that was based on mostly clients that I had worked with in Hyperion. Then my career pivoted to when Oracle bought Hyperion. I jumped
Right.
out and started a boutique consulting firm with my friend Simon Tucker. And our first, or I should say, our last client was Anaplan. And so we landed there in 2009 when they were brand new and started inventing this notion of connected planning. And I noticed
Wow.
that so much of EPM is in that message that I took the EPM book and pivoted over to focusing on strategic planning and financial planning and operational planning. And I think one platform for all 3 kinds of planning was new to me. I was used to more financial planning in Hyperion. And that had me think about this book, this notion of connected planning, and communicate that idea out there.
Wow, cool. So, having a diverse background in strategy, finance, and consulting, how do you integrate these areas to drive effective business outcomes in today's rapidly changing environment?
Yeah, yes, such a good question. I asked the question, what drives value? That's really, if I had to boil it down to, it's that one question. It takes dozens of forms, and it's an interactive kind of conversation. But when I sit down with a new client or even an existing client, and they're looking to see how can I drive better outcomes, I start with that question: what drives value? And it depends on who I'm talking to. If it's a CFO, it's
Mm.
all about risk and performance and
Wow.
controls and all those really good things. And I drill down with them on that conversation. If they tell me that 300 basis points of operating margin will really drive value for me this year, I want to drill into that. Well, what drives operating margin?
Yeah.
Well, it's sales efficiency. Well, what drives sales efficiency? In consulting, we call it the 5 whys. You just keep asking the question why until you really get to the crux of the matter. But I kind of do it in a way that's not annoying or
Of
repetitive
course. Yeah,
and
yeah.
more conversational. And the other thing that I do, and it's something that Simon Tucker taught me, was to map this conversation out in a series of connected points of value
Right.
across the entire business. So I end up delivering our client a value map that shows all those things that drive operating efficiency and operating margin and all
Sure.
the connection points. And they very quickly see, well, it's not just finance, it's finance and sales and marketing and delivery and HR
Yes.
and
Yes.
IT. Everybody, needs to collaborate to improve outcomes. And so that is sort of like the basis of everything I do, is asking what drives value.
Oh, cool. So, with your extensive experience in EPM, how do you see the integration of AI and cloud systems transforming business strategies and operation?
Yeah, well, cloud systems is fait accompli. It's done. Like pretty much all of our EPM stuff is or should be in the cloud,
Yeah.
uh, for better or worse in some cases, but mostly better.
Yeah.
Better adoption, better enablement, faster standing. Businesses are now out of the business of data centers or
Sure.
on premise for the large part. So I think the cloud is taken care of, and I'm not too worried about that. And the trajectory is strong for that.
Sure.
Yeah, it's AI that's most interesting to me. We are just so, at the infancy of this technology.
Yes.
And when I think about EPM, I break it down into two parts. One is large language models. So what we do with ChatGPT and Bard and systems like that.
Yeah.
And so far, we've experimented at Innovate Partners in things like summarizing financial statements or
Right.
summarizing management reporting or summarizing analytics and insight, so that you can write the story of your data better. And
Mm.
that's pretty easy to do. And we've learned all the right prompts. And I think most finance departments have been experimenting with large language model work right now. And software vendors are starting to integrate that. But I think the real benefit, the real juice in AI for EPM is machine learning.
Yeah.
Is to start letting our data do some of the decisioning for us, to start
Mm.
letting, I was fortunate enough to be involved in a couple of Fortune 100 companies experimenting with pivoting their sales forecast to a machine learned forecast.
Mm.
Instead of bottoms up from every account rep and then tops down from sales management and anti-sandbagging and management overrides and tweaking in the middle and taking 2 months to come up with your revised forecast. Now we let historical performance, external factors, and insights from the data and patterns that we had not seen before drive
Wow.
our forecast. And now we get to stop spending time on the act of forecasting and spend more time on the act of selling or delivering or
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
managing. And yeah, so I think that's really where the juice is machine learning.
Fantastic. So, as a core faculty member of UNM Anderson CRE, what are your primary focuses and objectives in nurturing responsible entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so most of my job is EPM and connected planning and helping clients come up with their vision and their roadmap and solving that with data, technology, and process. That's most of my work. My sort of community work is what I do at University of New Mexico. I'm
Right.
fortunate enough to be on the core faculty of a new center called the Center for Responsible Entrepreneurship here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And that's where we take social entrepreneurs through a multi-month, I think it's about an 8-month program now,
Right.
where we meet on the weekends and we take 14 entrepreneurs through this process called disciplined entrepreneurship and help them launch a business and get funding. And all of them are working towards either environmental impact or better sustainability or social governance or
Yes.
all the things that we think sort of the direction capitalism is going into, be more conscious, more less profit centric and more people, profit,
Sure.
planet
Sure.
centric. And so
Yeah.
that's sort of how I get to give back and help those entrepreneurs through strategy and finance and some of the ideas in EPM and analytics and
Wow.
metrics and all those good things that they need to do as a business.
Cool, that's really nice. So
Yeah.
you've been involved in several initiatives, including the New Mexico Angels Inc. Can you tell more about your role in these organizations and their impact on the community?
Yeah, it's sort of it dovetails into what I'm doing with University of New Mexico. It's mentoring entrepreneurs,
Right.
especially from their mission, vision, value, and strategy, and even using some of those typical consulting tools like the 5 Whys or
Mm.
herringbone or Ishikawa diagrams or heat maps,
Yeah,
helping
yeah,
them think through, well, what do they want to be? What does their business look like? So what
sure.
should your team look like? What does your product look like? What's your pricing model? And I just
Mhm.
absolutely love using what I've learned in the last 35 years to help entrepreneurs make a difference in their communities. Um, New Mexico Angels is a angel investment firm looking for social entrepreneurs to fund and launch larger businesses in the American Southwest. And so that's my community, and I get to make a difference there.
Ah, cool, cool. So, how do you balance your professional commitments with personal interests, such as volunteer work and learning, Ally and Santa Fe Innovate? I mean, it's just a question really for everybody. How do you do it?
I gave up trying to balance. I don't think balance, for me,
Yeah.
balance isn't really a thing. It's more integration. How do I integrate my mentoring and my teaching and my consulting in the rest of my life? And so my community contribution is part of that. My writing and thought leadership is part of that. I think, yeah, maybe I'm a little bit nerdy, but my downtime is usually either reading about it or writing about it, or like that. I'm very fortunate to live in a place that's it's beautiful outdoors, and so I can use that to my advantage for
nice.
thinking and contemplating and doing better. But I would encourage people to think about more integrating work, life, social, physical balance, all that stuff, rather than trying to apportion a percentage of your time to each. It's not. I don't think that works.
Fantastic. So going back to EPM, so looking at the evolution of EPM and business intelligence, what do you believe are the next big trends or challenges that organizations should prepare for?
Even with all these great tools and with artificial intelligence and machine learning and with all the evolved user interfaces in SaaS, we still spend far too much time wrangling the data and trying to figure out where to focus our attention and telling the story of performance using EPM tools. So much time. So I think the future has to be automating data ingestion, data consumption, the processes, alerting, helping the end user focus on where they can make a better impact in the business based on prior performance and external factors. So that's one. The other thing I would love to see happen more in the industry, now that we have these tools and we have that data and big data and external data, is better, I'll call it readiness, better scenario planning. So start to think about larger external factors on our business, political and environmental and social change. How do we incorporate that into our 3 and 5 year business planning always? And how do we have ready at hand an annual operating plan or a 3-month sales forecast that would fit those circumstances, so that when they come to pass, like tariffs go up or the workforce is either more expensive or harder to enroll and harder to maintain, that we are ready with how we're going to invest our time and energy and money and capital and people to execute on that new set of circumstances. So I would love to see strategic foresight as a core competency for every business. And I believe that'll happen, but it's slow.
Cool. So finally, Ron, what advice would you give to professionals aspiring to excel in the fields of EPM, digital transformation, and strategic consulting?
Yeah, for me, I think about this a lot. I'm fortunate enough to work with a company now, Innovate Partners. It's 45 consultants that all come out of school and then get trained into being a consultant from scratch and get a lot of opportunity to learn and learn together and coach each other. And I talk about letter-shaped consultants. And so I think for folks that are in EPM consulting or want to get into EPM consulting, there's at least 3 letters to think about. The letter I. So an I-shaped consultant is sort of where I started. It means I go really deep in one functional area or one subject matter. For me, it was FP&A. So I got really deep in, close and console and AOP and P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow. I'm not an accountant or a finance person. I'm a computer programmer. So I had to learn that. I went really deep. So that's the first phase. The second phase is a T-shaped consultant. So you keep that deep expertise in one subject, but then you start to go broad horizontally across functions. Learn a little bit about marketing and sales ops and revenue growth management and product management and HR and legal and all the other things that go across functionally for the business. And then I think your ultimate goal is to become an H consultant, where you get really deep in one area, really deep in another area, and you join the two. You start to get really good at like machine learned sales forecasts or something like that. I think that's a really good construct to think about, I, T, and H for your consulting journey. And then just read a lot of books.
Cool. Fantastic. I really enjoyed today's interview. Have a great day. And really, let's try and do a few more in the future. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Tim. Thanks very much.
Thank you.